level up a few thousand degrees with the Lavahot podcast and host Joseph Connell Jr. You'll hear from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, from tech startup CEOs and marketing professionals to authors, investors, and sales trainers. This show will be packed with information to help you level up in life or business, taking you from on fire up to lava hot. Get ready to burn this down.
Another episode of the Lavahot podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Connell. Today, I have a treat. An individual that my wife actually found on social media. I always have her looking for inspiring entrepreneurs. I actually tasked her recently. Look, find me some young female entrepreneurs, ones that are out there working with other business owners, helping grow their business or growing their own business. And that's when she came across Miss Lillian Victoria. Just to give you a little bit of background about Lillian, mentor, coach, speaker. She's also certified with Proctor Gallagher Institute. For those that don't know who that is, if you ever read the book, The Secret, there was an individual in that book who I was introduced to through that book. His name was Bob Proctor. And so that's where the Proctor Gallagher Institute comes from. She is an individual that works with high performance entrepreneurs and executives. Basically, the way that it was put to me is that she helps them navigate setbacks and turn them into fuel in order to propel their business forward into the future. Or the way that she put in, I think it's even better, is that she helps them go from good to great. Lillian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And you did a great job.
Yeah. The one thing they always say about podcasts is that it happens real time and in the moment when you're recording. So the good news is if I screw up too bad, I get to go back and just do it again, or I get to, try to clean it up.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to start this episode really just by having you, walk us through, your background. From what I understand, you did something in the film industry. Having not had a chance to read up a ton about you, which I always find is a benefit when it comes to recording a podcast, because then I get to learn as well as the audience. But I want to learn about your background and then how your career has evolved to be, one that's working with individuals, whether they're in sales, real estate, entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, executives, so on and so forth. So if you don't mind, just share with us your background and we'll kind of propel it into the rest of the story here.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And you're right. I used to work as a film executive. I spent over a decade working in the film industry. I went to film school. I did the whole thing. I did music videos, films, and eventually international movies. Basically, that means international financing. But, there came to a point I was hanging out with a lot of glam, right? Famous people, big projects, traveling around. And I thought that was it. That was like my life. But then when I hit 35, I lost everything. And that's when I had to really take a close look at myself. I'm like, well, I checked all the boxes of what I was supposed to do. A good degree, I'm working, right? I know people. I got married. I live in a beautiful house. I have a beautiful baby. But why am I not happy?
Mm-hmm.
And also when you're in a leadership position, like how I was, I love reading onto leadership books. So I think that was also the foundation of me always growing and improving myself, right? As a leader, because as a leader, you must lead yourself before you can lead others. But for me, it was a point where I lost everything. And that's when, it's easy to blame everyone, by the way. It's easy to blame the people that hurt me. It's easy to blame the economy. It's easy, right?
Yep.
But then the most powerful thing that I've done for myself is I had to look at myself. I'm like, okay, so what did I do wrong? And then to realize that I was so good on helping people make their movies, but I was always a supporting role. What is my movie? What do I want to do in life? And that's when everything started to shift, and it was a blessing in disguise, because I realized like I built a beautiful house on an empty foundation. That's why when the foundation slid, everything crashed, right? It gave me this opportunity to rebuild the foundation. to rebuild, who am I? What is my identity? Because I remember at one point, especially working in Hollywood, my identity wasn't what I wanted to do or who I was. It was the projects that I was working on. That was
Right.
my identity. And even though we're talking about film, this really goes across to a lot of industries. A lot of people, their identity is their job, is their income, the people they associate themselves with. And the moment that really shook my life was someone's like, so what do you want to do? Like, what's your purpose? And I had no clue. I had no clue. I'm like, I'm not the company anymore. I'm not the funding anymore. I'm not the people I'm hanging out. So who am I? Right. So
Yeah.
that was a starting point for me to start my journey. And as I got into my journey and I started to look at my vision, my purpose, and what I want to do is to give back. And that's why I became a coach and a mentor. And I've now served over hundreds of people around the world.
Very cool. So in that, because me being an individual that works with a lot of business owners, I think right now, there's maybe a state of uncertainty, I mean, with inflation, things like that. I feel like everybody is just kind of on the edge of their seat is the way that it seems to me. But I think that there's things that people can do to really prepare, not just, maybe financially, but a lot of it, I think, comes to the mindset of how you approach things. I really think that, being an entrepreneur in sales or, if you're running some sort of business that makes money, I think that you have this advantage that you can create your own opportunities, you can create your own economy. But it all starts here. I think the trouble that happens is people will watch the news and they start, they hear the bad stories, or what I even led this part of the segment off with, which is, people are on the edge of their seat. It's something that I'm experiencing working with business owners, that they are just mentally like already thinking like, okay, things are about to get bad or they might get bad. But I really think that that's where it cultivates. If you keep thinking it right there, you will find evidence that that is the case. But
Yeah.
my gut tells me that you're an individual that would be able to help people navigate past that and start thinking, okay, well, how do I start looking for some of the clearer opportunities, the better opportunities, and shifting the mindset that way? Because it sounds like that's something that you went through yourself, where,
Yes.
you had the quote unquote, good things that you should be happy with, but it just wasn't fulfilling in the way you weren't able to live out your purpose in that way.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, just kind of share, like, as people are starting to, maybe approach the rest of 2022, how they start shaping their mindset to really start going after the opportunities that are there.
Yeah. So there's two things I want to introduce you guys. Perception and imagination are two mental faculties that sits in our conscious mind. So you just said thinking, right? So what are you thinking? That's the first step. Thoughts are things. Whatever you think in your thought is going to manifest into, your physical life. So I don't want to get so woo here. So I'm going to make it very simple.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're thinking, right now, the news, inflation, recession, the war, the market crash, all of that, what is that doing? It's creating fear. So when it's creating fear, you're using your imagination, you're seeing fear, you're seeing the worst case scenario, right? So, 95% mindset, 5% strategy. This is what Bob Proctor taught me.
Yep.
And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, what? Because my old meetings were all strategy.
Yep.
Right. But then when it's the 95% mindset, it's where are you coming from? If you're coming from the place of fear, all the strategy that's going to come out is going to be based on that. So when people are so worried about the Great Depression again, or, coming to this, any kind of poverty thinking, the strategy is going to be based on that. So perception. So let's shift that thinking. Right. When you look at depression, basically what it is, it's a lot of people that's in worry that created fear, and all of a sudden we're in depression. Right. But if you look at it historically, you can look at depression, the Great Depression, you can look at COVID. It is a wealth shift. So many millionaires were birthed during those transitions. Right. So now we're switching into faith. Again, it's what are you seeing? Are you seeing the opportunities? Are you seeing what you can create? Are you navigating through that? And based on that, now you can create a strategy within your imagination. I use imagination because we all have it in us, right? And then you start to pave the way. And this includes financial goals. Okay, it's your financial income is going to be in direct ratio of what you believe you are. right?
Right.
You're thinking from 10,000 a month to 20,000 to a million. These are very different way of thinkings, right? So
Right.
that's the to make it simple. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. You know, faith and fear are both invisible, right? But which one are you believing? You know, all the religion says we got to live in faith. A lot of books talk about it. We all know it. But the question is subconsciously, are you really living in faith? And that's how you take control of your environment and your economy. And one more thing too, right? As we're kind of, the news is sharing all these, you know, negativity, if you may, not all the news, but most, right? With
Sure.
what's going on with the economy. What is your vision and your purpose in this? Because most people, they don't have a goal. So actually, research has said 97% of people, they don't have their own vision, purpose, and goal. So what happens is they're drifting, you know, and this is the life that I used to live in. You know, I used to be an executive. You know, I was flying around. I was very busy to just be busy, just so
Right.
I could stay in the rat race. But I was drifting because I was so busy on just jumping on something else. So I'm not being I'm not was it being a leftover, so to speak, right?
Right.
I'm chasing the game.
Yep.
But the minute that I got clear with what I want in my life, all my focus goes on to that. So sure, the economy could change. There is a wall shift, right? My mind and my focus, and this is for everyone, is where we're heading. So now we start to solve every problem along the way. We're not off course, we're still on course. And then one thing I have in my mind that I always say, and I teach all my clients this, and this is very powerful, always say you're on track. You're on track.
Yep.
Because even if there's a little setback, there's the reason you're learning something out from it. Failing is an experience. And you know what I like to call failing? The bigger failing experience I have is just an acceleration for me.
Yep.
Right?
Like
it's an acceleration process. It is not an identity. When it becomes identity, that's when people start to, the low self-esteem, the depression, all that start to come in place, and then the mind block, and boom, they're just waiting for the worst to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. So my gut tells me, having worked with over 100 individuals, business owners, entrepreneurs, sales reps, what have you, I would imagine that one, I guess all of them would probably have to have some sort of open-mindedness in order to have somebody try to help them move things forward, which, you know, I think, especially in that game of being an entrepreneur or starting a business, it's always good to have some sort of professional coaching. I am curious though, are there like common things that you tend to see that are like staples, not setbacks, but obstacles that individuals give themselves before, like when you first get started with them? Like, is there things that are like, you know, 3 or 4 things that you see it's across the board? Most people have XYZ issue that you need to overcome before you get into, you know, really starting to help them advance.
Yeah. The number one is goal. You know,
Yep.
like really finding the right goal for you. And it's the one that you want, not what other people tell you. Like speaking for myself, right? When I grew up, my mom always wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, accountant.
Yep.
Right. I didn't want to be one. So she's like, go marry one. And then when I was in film, she's like, oh, I'm an accountant that works for film. It was like crazy.
Right.
But my whole point I'm saying that is because, you know, setting a goal, and then what happened is I feel guilty of doing something that I want. So most people, they set goal based on what other people think they should do and not
Right.
what you want to do. So the first step to freedom is really be courageous and identify what you want. And sometimes that means going against the masses. That's most of the time.
Right.
So that's the most important thing. And when I mean setting the goal, it has to be big enough, scare you and excite you. I like to say it to the point when you have your butterflies. Every client I work with, once we hit that goal, I'm sorry, not hit the goal, like we discovered that goal. I have a client, she goes, it makes me want to pee in my pants, but I'm so excited about it.
Yep.
But that's so important because now you're inspired by yourself. You want to be driven by yourself. You want to be driven by your vision. You know, most people when they wake up, you know, memory is also one of a mental faculty. They're being remembered by all this memory of the past, and most of the time they're past failures. But we want you to wake up to be driven by your future, by your vision. So that's number one.
Yep.
Another one is self-image. In other words, self-confidence. right? Every single one of us grew up differently. You know, one thing about me, I grew up in Asia a little bit in my childhood, and in this island called Taiwan. My fifth grade teacher had told me in front of all the kids, that's like 40 kids in the class, that my best job was to be a janitor, right?
Wow.
And it's from a culture where whatever the teacher says yes is yes. And she said that because I was this kid from America. I didn't speak Chinese that well. And he was a English teacher, and I challenged him on something, and I was all of a sudden the bad student. But I'm saying this because when I was a kid, I didn't recognize how big of an impact it had on me. It was as an adult, I
Right.
started to see that situation, and I'm seeing it from an adult lens, saying that, oh my gosh, no wonder the fifth grade Lillian would believe that. But she's not really at fault. So we're really dissecting that situation and understanding on how one incident could have a huge impact in our self-image, right? And there's more. It's what you were told. Sometimes the parenting, the school, all that is very important. So your self-image is going to dictate how you see your life, if you're worthy, right? And this, when it ties to money goals, because a lot of people, they want to earn a lot, but then they're scared. They don't feel like they can. And then this has a direct impact in their belief system.
Yep.
They
Very
don't
cool.
believe they can, so they stop.
Yep.
Right. So another thing too is how you manage your activities. We live in this world where everything is going so fast because of social media and all these different reasons. You know, one of the habits that I've seen that goes across the board almost, including my old self, is people have a habit of being busy to just be busy.
Right.
Right? When you don't have a clearly defined goal, it's like people just want to be busy. Like you want to feel like you're worthy by being busy. Right. But once you have that goal, there is ways to work effectively and still be able to live a life and have a healthy place. And then being able to really fully just embrace the process. So now instead of working in resistance and stress, you're working in harmony.
Yep.
Right. And that's where the faith comes in, because we're living in faith when you know it's happening. As Bob says it's already done. When you made a decision of the goals that you want, it's already done. So the faith process it's exactly like putting a car key into the car. When you turn on the car with your car keys, you know the car is going to run.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking, oh, is it going to work? What if it doesn't work? What did I do? What happened? Like all this like mind blocks that happens, or the mind drama that happens, right?
Right.
But you just know. So these are a few things that I see that's the most common. And then the last thing is paradigm. Paradigm is a habitual way of thinking and habits all put together. If I make it even more simply, it's human programming. My human programming and yours is completely different based on our genetic DNA, our culture, our upbringing, our experiences. My logic and your logic is completely different because we have different perceptions, right? But once you can identify what you really want in your life that inspires you, then we can start making those paradigm shift, because the person that is getting whatever results you're getting right now, and the person that you're achieving big results, that person is going to change.
Right.
It's going to change.
Yeah.
So did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. It was a great answer. So for those listening, and let's say it's not even somebody that's an entrepreneur, they're in sales, or they're in network marketing or what have you. If they were to, let's say they've never thought about putting their goals down on paper and trying to picture what that life would be like, where would you say to start? If somebody wanted to start setting down goals to really start going after, what would be like some of the thought process you would say, look, start thinking in this way and start putting this down?
Yeah, I would ask them a very simple question. What would you love? What do you want? It's that simple. What would you love in your life? Like, how would you love to live? How would you love to travel? How does that feel? Because you want to be in the state of feeling good. That's when the harmony comes in, that feeling good, right? And really answer those questions. Create a laundry list for yourself. It's what do you love, right? So that's the first piece, because when you could really see what you love and you can see it very clearly, our mind is so powerful, and our mind also operates in mental images.
Yep.
So when you ask yourself that, when you laundry list that, you're going to be able to see it in your mind. Van Gogh, he sees it in his mind before he paints it on the canvas.
Yep.
Right. So my background is film. So I would say, so what is the story? What is your character development? That's the past, everything you went through. What's a hero moment? And then you start to visualize that, right? So that now gives you a desire. Desire is key.
Yep.
If people are just doing it to make money without desire, that's when people get burned out. But if there is a desire, that why if that's so personal, that's going to be your ignition. Right. And another thing, one thing that I'm very passionate about talking about is sales, right? This whole idea of sales, because everyone is going to look at this word very differently, right? I know school didn't teach me this. I know being even in a different business in every industry that I've been in, right? I've been in film, but then I've coached a lot of different industries. Anything to make a business sustainable is profit, and it is sales. A lot of people, they don't like sales because they think it's gross or nagging people, but then this ties into the paradigm as well. So, one thing I always ask people is, what was the first time someone introduced you this idea of sales, and what did that person say? Right. That sets your belief in this whole idea of selling. When I look at selling, it's helping people. It's an exchange of service. It's me helping someone get to wherever they want to be. And then when the money comes to me, I'm able to create the life I love or reinvest it or what have you. But now everything is flowing, right? And selling is always happening, because the people that are listening to this right now, I'm pretty much selling them this whole idea of selling. My son, when I'm talking to my son, I'm selling him to eat spinach every day. It's the same thing. It's getting a message across, being able to connect with the person and knowing that I have something that could help the person. And even, take it back a little bit more, right? Back in the days when, I'm turning 39 this month. So but back in the days when I grew up, I was also taught to get a good degree and get a job. And that's when money comes from the job and not from my service. So that was a huge paradigm shift. So we went through that. And then you have, that was the industrial age where people get paid through a job. And then we went through the technology age, and now we're in the servicing age, right? And especially after COVID, I myself is not a firm believer of 9 to 5 anymore. I haven't believed it in a while. Right. So I believe in wealth creation starts with myself, always built all those multiple sources of income. But once you get into the servicing age, this is where everything really ties into your self-image, that you're able and you're willing and you're able to provide the service. So when the money comes and when you make the ask, you feel good about it. The resistance, whatever resistance that's inside from your belief in sales, a lot of them, everyone is different, but a lot of what I've seen is this kind of unjustification of how they can, or they're worthy of receiving the money. And then the doubt, right? So there's this whole mindset game inside you, and fall in love with it. Really fall in love with what you do, fall in love with the process of selling, and always visualize the results that's going to come out from your client. That helps tremendously.
Yeah, it's funny that you say it, because sales for me, that's when I really started to make some big changes in my life. Because I referenced this earlier on, like when I first started the show, that about 10 or 11 years ago, I was working for a company called Miss Utility, where you go out there and you spray paint lines. Previous to that, I worked for a lumber company, and somewhere along that path, I started listening to guys like Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, and somewhere along there, this idea blossomed in me that I wanted to be, at the time, I called it a corporate life coach, just because I didn't really understand that the word consultant was the one I was looking for. And then I just fell in love with this idea. My background, 84 Lumber, built this love for local to mid-sized companies. I remember there was this local drywall company. It was in the middle of 2008. And, all the subcontractors, they all got hammered because the big builders were over leveraged, and they really stuck it to the little guy. And during that time, I fell in love with that local to mid-sized company, and that cultivated this entire career of mine for the last 10 years, where it's who I love to help. I love helping local to mid-sized companies. If I can help them put another $1 million on the board by the end of the year, or 2 million, whatever it is, I'm happy. If I can help them discover, the products and services that they have inside of their business that they're trying to market maybe more effectively to bring in more customers of that caliber, that's, I love seeing that blossom. But along that way, I had to learn how to sell, because sometimes you have to be able to sell a client on what you're trying to do is the right thing for them.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to prospect effectively. If I see a contractor that could be marketing better, I feel an obligation and a duty to reach out to them, because I believe that there is something of value that I can bring to the table to help them maybe do another kitchen install or a new roof, or, what have you. And oftentimes when I sit down with clients, and it goes back to some of the stuff you've been saying, more often than not, I find a lot of them don't even have goals sat down. A lot of times they haven't sat down and said, you know what, if I was spending more time servicing this type of customer over this type of customer, we'd make way more. We'd be able to grow the company way bigger. So, and for me, sales comes down to a simple formula. You've got to ask the right questions to get the right answers, to try to get them to the right results. Otherwise, I feel like there is bad salespeople out there. There are people that will just try to sell you something to make a commission. But I think the right people in the right circumstances, they really come at it from a position of really wanting to help, whether that's a new car, that's a new roof, it's marketing, it's sales, training, it's coaching, whatever it is. I think it starts with asking the right questions to try to help them realize, what result they're trying to achieve. But, I love what you've brought to the table so far in this conversation, but
Thank
definitely.
you.
And I think sales is the equal opportunity, opportunity.
Yeah. And if I could just add what you said, it's so beautiful. And I could feel that passion and that desire in the service that you're providing. That's what I call heart to heart selling. When you're really able to connect with the person. Because one thing I've learned is don't sell someone that they don't want your service. But when they're the right fit. And I'm a very intuitive person. And this is one thing that we teach: trust your intuition. I have got a corporate client, and I was very ballsy. It was just a full gut. I cannot explain it. I knew about this person. Somehow we connected somewhere. So I made the phone call and I said, I made the decision that I'm going to work with you. I'm going to coach your company. I'm going to be coaching you. He thought I was completely crazy, but it was truly like a gut intuition. And I asked for it, and through persistence, I got it. But exactly everything like what Joseph is saying, ask questions, come from the heart. Right? Because I've learned when you just sell them a product, if they don't need it, no one really cares. But they know how it's going to benefit them by asking questions, and they feel like they're being heard. And your intuition is guiding you. You're in that right spot.
Yep. And I think business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, sales reps, whoever it is, I think that they can even learn from that sometimes. When I'm selling a client on, a marketing program, I believe that how I'm going to try to present that with the right questions, how I'm going to go about it, I think that they could equally be learning at the same time. Like, hey, you know what? This should be part of our sales process.
Yeah.
When we go out there, we really should be trying to assess the needs of it, of this home that we're trying to service, and try to offer them what they need to fix all their problems, not just offer them, maybe this one core package that we like to sell because we sell a lot of it, but more so like the solution to the entire deal, if you will. But as we get, close to the end of this episode, I did want to ask, like, who are the main type of individuals that you do work with? And, for anybody that might be interested in coaching, I would imagine that you can work with individuals all over the country, all over the world, virtually, the whole deal, right?
Yeah, 100%. With the internet now, everything's so fun and easy. Okay, so I work with a lot of real estate finance professionals, so very heavy in sales mindset. I also work with a lot of executives, or any kind of profession, but high performers. So people that are looking to achieve, whether it's an entrepreneur internally or being an entrepreneur, like bridging out from their job and building their own business based on their vision and purpose. So if I could sum it up, I always like to say it when I look at high performing entrepreneurs, it's people that are willing to invest in themselves, are willing to get uncomfortable, and that are willing to do the work, because I don't really care about where they're at right now. I care about where they're heading. And the people that pick up the call and and with the right questions as we're conversing, that's when I know. And those are the kind of people that I work with.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. And for anybody that wants to follow you, I found your TikTok and just started going through some of the videos. So a lot of great content there. That's another part of sales that I think is very important, especially in 2022, is just this giving constantly. Something that I think a lot of us probably learned from guys like Gary Vee, but it's just this constant giving of even your very best. I believe you can give the very best of what you know, and still, unfortunately, people won't take action on it, but it's finding the right people that are ready to take that action. But let me get back to it. So TikTok, I know you're there, Instagram, and YouTube as well, I believe
I'm starting my YouTube, and I have a Facebook group. Yeah.
Very cool. And the Facebook group, is that for individuals that are part of your coaching, or is that kind of like
I have that too, but this one's for open. So we have a really cool community with entrepreneurs all over the world. If you are interested, it's facebook.com/group/awesomeness-lifestyle-official. Yeah.
Very cool. Yep. And what's like your website, Instagram, so on and so forth?
Yeah, my website, awesomeness-lifestyle.com. Simple.
Very simple. Yeah.
It's awesome. And my Instagram is Lillian Victoria Official.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Lillian, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join me on my show. I love it. I don't always take notes when I do the show, but I was kind of compelled to, so I started jotting down a lot of what you were saying, despite the fact that I know that I can listen to it. For some reason, just putting pen to paper sometimes just really gets it in there. But I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, and hopefully we can try to connect here in the future once we get this all edited and ready to publish and all that jazz. I'd love to try to have you back for some sort of follow-up visit in the future.
I would love that. Thank you so much for connecting with me, and thank you for having me as your guest. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Been listening to the Lavahot podcast with Joseph Connell Jr. Do you want to level up your business in 2022? Then visit us at golavahot.com for a free marketing analysis.